Hey guys, what's up? So obviously you know what this video is about. It's about older programmers. And sorry to show such an old bastard as this, but this is a free image, so what can I say? I didn't actually draw it or anything, and it came from Pixabay, so it's part of the Creative Commons, and I gave all that attribute, whatever. Anyway, so what happens to older programmers? A lot of people talk about that. They want to know whether or not it's too late for them to start programming when they're in their 50s. On the internet, and I haven't talked to this person personally, but I know somebody that actually started programming at the age of like 81, I think it was. It was either 80 or 81, but they were in their 80s, and I just remember being completely blown away by the fact that, this person actually started at that age of their life. 80s are the new 60s, right? Or 70s at the very least. But just today, a famous astronaut died. I don't remember his name because he was really popular. Glenn something or other. He was very popular in the '60s, well before my time. But he was on record as saying like, a lot of people, fail to realize that older people have ambitions as well. They have just as much ambition and goals in their life and what remains of it as younger people. Like we don't know how much time we have. Young people could get hit by a bus tomorrow and never realize their goals. And the simple fact is that if you're 60 or if you're 30 or if you're even 15, you have an idea of what you're looking forward to in life, and hopefully you're working towards something. If you just sit on your ass and you never do anything, then of course things probably aren't going to go your way unless you hit the lottery or something. But people ask me, a lot of people are talking about, I want to be a programmer. I started programming myself, myself, and I've been programming for about 7 years now. I started at the age of 28, and I did everything the wrong way the first couple of years. I didn't have a whole lot of direction, and I've been programming professionally for over 4 years now. So I feel like it's been in a professional capacity for closer to 7, but it definitely 4 years I have on my resume of saying I've worked for major companies for 4 years now. So. The thing is that I work with some brilliant people that are older than me. Some brilliant people that are in their 40s and their 50s. Very smart people, and some of them may not be as up to date on some of the more modern JavaScript libraries and things like that, but they are absolutely brilliant in their own way. Just the other day, I was talking to somebody that was around when a lot of the assembly programmers were basically building their own compilers, and she remembers that day, and it was a female actually, and that's another video I could talk about where there's not the discrepancy between male and female in the programming industry, but she was talking about these people that they were very quirky type of people that worked in these assembly languages that they'd have to basically make the computer perform to their needs and things like that. It wasn't C#'s compiler that was doing all the work for you or anything like that. It was basically hardware was expensive back in those days. The programmers were cheaper, even though they had to do a shitload more than what we have to do nowadays. Now it's the opposite, where programmers are the most expensive commodity and hardware is cheap. Memory, add more disk space, all that stuff is much cheaper than a programmer's salary. So the thing is that older programmers are getting hired, and just yesterday, and I wanted, when I was talking to this guy, I was like, man, I definitely have to tell my audience. But just yesterday, I talked to a guy that ended up graduating from a pretty, decent school, and the I don't want to give out too much information, but he went to a West Virginia university. It might be a college, actually. You know what? Screw it. It's Bluefield College, I think. Bluefield is what it was. But he ended up graduating from that in his 50s and getting his first programming gig, where he had been working in the medical industry for over 25 years. So, that might be pie in the sky type of thing. I actually don't think it was. When I was talking to him, I was talking to him about, the ageism that exists, what we think exists in Silicon Valley with Facebook and all these other companies. And I was asking him, whether or not he actually thought that was a reality, because based on books that I've read recently, I read that Disrupted book that talks about HubSpot, the Cambridge, Massachusetts startup for this, buzzword, inbound marketing bullshit that they do. But this this programmer didn't feel discriminated against whatsoever, not for his age or anything else. He was like, he's like, there might be a remote possibility that they thought initially that I was young because I had just graduated. But he's like, obviously they saw my picture and I had, code available online. But in his case, this guy had been tinkering with Linux for decades, actually, before he actually got into programming. So I guess he was always somewhat of a curious hacker type, and maybe that's one of the exceptions for him. But the thing is, like, he didn't really have an online portfolio or anything like that. It wasn't until he went to school for computer science and actually graduated that he started building this online portfolio where he was then able to point to these projects that he had created. And he talked a bit about different projects that he had, and he was more into like the C++ and C level type of programs, software type programs, not like in the web side of things. But anyway, I just wanted to let you guys know that this guy was well into his 50s, and he was able to get a job and a first-time IT programming job in the United States with a computer science degree. Now that also means that he had a computer science degree. So you guys have always asked, like, should you get the degree or should you not? Should you go to a boot camp? I don't know. I like the boot camps. They offer a lot of value, right? I was talking to a manager who actually hires, and I said I think I've told you guys this before, but he's a software manager for a golf course in Ashburn, Virginia, which is like, that's where like the Redskins training camp. It's big money up there in Northern Virginia and the Ashburn area. But this guy is actually a programmer for you believe it or not, an actual golf course has their own IT staff. So, but he was saying that the boot camps, like, he finds to be very, very beneficial for people that have some programming background. When they take that boot camp, like, they consider it to be just as good as anything else. So if you come from a COBOL background and you do a GuideWire or Java or C# boot camp or something like that, the chances are you're going to be very, very hireable in that case because you have that programming experience. Now, if all you ever did was take a 12-week course, I mean, the time, I think it's going to take a certain amount of time before the industry determines whether or not that is actually feasible enough in order to have a job. Now, that said, on the web side of things, like my sponsor, Dev Mountain Coding Bootcamp, they focus on the web world. So it's not like they're expecting you to work on rocket ships after a 12-week course. I mean, it's like an action-packed course where they're trying to drill in the things that every web development shop is using, and really things that I've seen firsthand where you have Java developers or C# developers that don't have enough jQuery, JavaScript, React, Knockout, using tools like Grunt, Babel, Webpack, things like that. Those skills can be taught relatively quickly. And for a lot of shops, I think they're starting to find out that it's much better to separate your UI from your back end. So where we want it to be all full stack and everything like that, JavaScript has created this new realm where you really need to kind of focus on the UI JavaScript side. And trying to bounce between all these different technologies is probably not going to do you a whole lot of good when it comes to being a JavaScript expert. So you're not going to be a JavaScript expert in 12 weeks. That is an absolute fact. But can you be, can you come out very strong as a junior developer for HTML, CSS, and JavaScript jQuery type skills in order to build simple websites that most businesses need? Then I think the answer is yes. And if that's enough to get your foot in the door as a junior programmer, even if the industry says, you know what, kids coming out of college with a computer science degree from University of Virginia or Virginia Commonwealth University or something like that, where they have good IT programs, they say, you know what, with the industry the way it is, these kids are obviously relatively smart, even though a lot of them can't program for shit, especially in a big team environment. They still are pulling in some cases, $60,000. And that said, I also, if I could take a moment just to mention, the same lady that was talking about the assembly programmers, she has a daughter that got hired out of college, with a computer science degree, and she got hired by Amazon for $90,000 right out of college. That is absolutely amazing money right out of college. Now, she hated Amazon and only lasted 6 months there. She said it was actually, she worked under a hellish manager, according to this mother that was explaining the story. But um, that's an interesting note. So if some companies like Amazon are willing to pay $90,000 for top level talent coming out of school that most likely can't even program for shit in a big team environment, an enterprise stacks, can there be like basically a new pay grade for people that are going in with the boot camps that are paying $10,000 for education that gives them a good basis and a grounding, and development, and then maybe paying them 35 or 40 and then having them work themselves up. They should be fast tracked up, by the way, because if they're able to do that stuff even at that level, I would think within a couple years they should be up to that that $60,000-$70,000 range at least, if not 100, depending on where you are in the United States. Now I understand, like in London, they get paid a lot less in the IT world for some reason, even though London's really expensive to live in. So there's obviously like I guess a wide range of salaries that exist across the world, and mostly I'm speaking for the United States because that's all I really have relevance in. But that I think this is obviously a situation that happens across the board. I'm sure there's going to be boot camps, if there's not already, in different countries. I know Canada has boot camps, so. I think the jury is out, right? The jury is out on these things, and it's going to be, the reputable ones are going to be the ones that are actually going to set this trend. Like Dev Mountain Coding Bootcamp, they actually have a parent company. This is a big time company, so they're very worried about their image. Luckily for me that they've chosen to have me or to sponsor my content, and hopefully I do them justice and everything. And I think boot camps have a place, but all this said, going back to the original discussion of older programmers, I've talked firsthand with older programmers. They're able to find a job. Sometimes I think older programmers run into the situation where they just don't want to code anymore, so they go into management. Once you start leading management teams, or you're a director of a managing department, I think you're gonna be kind of hard pressed to go back into the development role. So a lot of those programmers, you wonder, where are they? Well, they're probably consultants, or they're starting their own businesses, or even they're doing something else. I know a guy that lives in Old Town Fredericksburg who has a shop down there, and he does a consignment shop for like basically high-end furniture, but it's a consignment shop. So you go in there and you can buy like literally high quality stuff, not the stuff you're seeing in IKEA or Walmart or anything like that. It's very high quality furniture that dates hundreds of years in some cases, and it's a consignment shop. And when I was talking to him, I was wondering how he did that, and it turns out he was a retired accountant. So he made his living as an accountant until he was in his 50s, and then ended up retiring early because he made a shitload of money when he was doing that work. So I think a lot of programmers, if you play your cards right, you can retire if you keep your expenses in check. You're not driving a Beamer, drive a Honda Accord or a Honda Civic or something. That you don't need the BMW or the large house. And I say that, and I have a pretty big house, probably bigger than I need, but. I don't know. There's the older programmers have their place. Another thing too is my father is an example of somebody who has had businesses and has failed at businesses in some cases, and the companies have gone bankrupt and things like that. He always finds his way, back into doing something else. But he's a developer at heart, but also mostly an entrepreneur. But there's been times in his life where he's managed entire teams, and he's been vice president of companies and things like that. And when people see that on the resume, it becomes harder to say, what, I was managing this team, I was VP of this company and VP of that company, and I was CEO of this company, but now I'm trying to go back to being a senior programmer for some company for $90,000 a year. I think that immediately throws red flags. It's not that they're not capable. They're probably some of the smartest programmers you'll ever talk to, even with these millennials who think that they're great. And nothing against millennials. I mean, the millennials obviously, like, if you're going to be writing game-changing software, doing the Reduxes of the world and stuff like that, you're probably fresh out of college and have a great mind and things like that, and not nearly as much responsibility as older people. But these older programmers, you can learn quite a bit from them. And I've said this before as well. One of the first things that businesses do when their startups start to succeed, the Snapchats and the Facebooks and the Googles of the world, they go out and they hire the gray-haired people that have been around the block a time or two, that understand how to talk to people, how to treat people, and how to manage people. So anyway, guys, that's really my thoughts tonight. Older programmers will be just fine. I plan on being a programmer in my 50s and my 60s, whatever. Even if hopefully I can live that long. I hope I can. You never know. I mean, like I said, we don't know what our futures hold, but I don't see myself not programming at any time in my life at this point. But you never know. I mean, people change, and our hobbies and interests change, and one of the great things about being a programmer, if you can find success in it, regardless of what age you get into it, I mean, you can make quite a bit of money in 10, 15 years, and it's one of the few professions where you can be learning during your day job and building something on the side, should you have enough opportunity and time. So it's almost like playing the lottery in some ways. Like you keep playing, eventually you might hit something. Maybe not the humongous jackpot, but there's plenty of small jackpots out there in the IT and business world that you don't hear about. I mean, you always hear about the billionaires and things like that, but there's plenty of millionaires out there that have struck it, rich on some sort of small project, and I'll probably feature some of these projects that I know of firsthand that have made people literally millions of dollars just on some simple ideas that were only relevant for a couple of years. All right, guys. Anyway, let me know what you think of this video. Please upvote. Please, and thank you for all the Patreon and for the PayPal donations. That's really awesome. I do appreciate that, guys. You have a good day. Take care. Bye. Hey guys, so I've talked about this a lot. Dev Mountain Coding Bootcamp, they are my sponsor. They're one of the reasons why I'm able to do these videos. And they offer a 12-week intensive course that teaches you the technologies of the here and now. They're going to focus on a lot of things that are actually being used in websites, things like jQuery, and they're going to be using stacks like Node.js. The 12-week intensive course is to try to get people in the job market. So that is their entire focus. We've talked a lot about on this channel whether or not a college degree is worth it. I'm not the one to be able to answer that question for you. I absolutely think that college degrees are great, especially in computer science. I never want to convince somebody to say that they shouldn't do that. Obviously, schools like Stanford and MIT, I'm in envy of all those graduates. However, there is the bulk of developers that don't necessarily need to be the MIT graduates to actually have success in the programming world. I think I speak relatively well for that type of person. And with coding boot camps, we're seeing them try to offer more skills, more modern day skills, because a lot of times when you're going to a computer science course in a major university, you're learning technology that's already outdated by the time you're learning it. With Dev Mountain and coding boot camps like what Dev Mountain offers, they're focusing on really what is hot right now. So, and they also focus on a relatively small set of skills in order to make sure that they are teaching you what you need to know in order to be productive in a workplace environment. So make sure you guys do me a favor, do yourself a favor, check out the link in the description tab below for more on Dev Mountain Coding Bootcamp. Thanks, guys. Bye.